Yes, I'm live. That's good. Praise the Lord. Okay. Okay. So let me put this a bit closer. Perfect. That's good. Now, I decided to do another live stream today because I thought, hey, why not? I have the time to do it. And I want to make use of every opportunity I have to reach out and do the will of the Heavenly Father. So that's why the second live stream for today, or maybe for you tomorrow already. I'm recording from my mobile phone now, which is locked to the charger, so it can't suddenly cause disruption because the battery is empty or anything like that. One clarification. I'm in a semi-public room now, so from time to time some people can come in and leave. I hope there's not much noise in the background, so that's why this live stream is going to be short. This live stream is more a motivational speech to you. Let me see. So, hold on. Curly Girl, thank you for being here. John Wonder, thank you for being here. I still need to set this straight up. Good. Now, this live stream is more a motivational speech to you. Because besides teaching you all, I also want to motivate you. Because it's also required in this day and age. Every group motivates their own. Every group. So why wouldn't believers motivate their own? Yes, finally. Okay. Good. Now, why am I motivating you believers? It's very simple. We're human beings, we're vulnerable creatures, and in this world we will face challenging times. Because this world, with all their garbage, they're going to retaliate against us when we refuse to put up with their self-destruction. When you don't put up with the self-destruction of the world, they turn on you as if you are the one that's making themselves self-destruct. We know that as believers. And we know this can be quite painful when this happens, especially when it comes from people close to you, relatives, or so-called friends, or people close to you from your own kin. So that's why it's a blessing that today we have instant communication through the internet. And I'm taking advantage of it to remind you that what we're doing is worthwhile as believers. Okay? Let's see if I miss any. I didn't miss anything in the live chat. Okay, good. I'm going to ask some questions, and you don't need to answer it, but just a question for you to think, okay? When was the last time you saw a Nigerian man? I know people from Nigeria are quite dark-skinned. I'm black also, but I'm more a light-skinned version, okay? When was the last time you saw a Nigerian man as a CEO or a manager in a Chinese corporation? When was the last time you saw that? I'm not talking about Chinese departments of a corporation that's located in Africa, okay? I'm talking about in the Western world, okay? Or in the or you can say the United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, or whatever. Even in Africa, where I'm not talking about the north of Africa. North Africa is quite light-skinned, but the majority of Africa is black, okay? Except some white minorities here and there due to the colonial era. But Africa is a black continent. If people don't agree with that, something's wrong with them. But here's the thing. Even in Africa, when Chinese puts their corporations, they will hire people from China to move to Africa to work in their corporations. So you can be from Zimbabwe, and there's a Chinese importer over there. Everyone that works that import service is Chinese. You as a black Zimbabwean guy may get a low paying job there. And it happens in your country. So they come to your country, let's say this case Zimbabwe or whatever. They start their business and they hire their own people to live in your country, and you may not even get a high paying job with them while they're located in your country. What is the philosophy behind this? It's very simple. You get along quicker with people who are like you. That's human psychology. That's understandable, whether you're a believer or unbeliever. But there's another motivation behind it. When you have people from your own group who depend on you overseas, they're extra vulnerable, especially if you don't speak the language. So that's why Chinese corporations, when they start a department somewhere in Africa or somewhere else, they put people from their own country or from their own diaspora over there because they depend more on them. And because this is increasing dependency, people are more loyal to the cause. Because let me give an example. Let's say you have a Chinese corporation that opens a business somewhere in the United States. If it's in the state of California, it's a car dealership, let's use that as an example, and they would hire an Afro-American as the manager. And the Afro-American now has to choose who's going to hire. Now the Afro-American may decide to hire more Afro-Americans or more light-skinned people or Mexicans, whoever. So then you have a multicultural workforce. But what happens is, all those people that come there have one thing in their minds: to get their wage at the end of the month. They're not there due to the mission of the corporation. They're there to get paid. So of course, it's relevant for them to know the vision of the corporation, but the vision of the corporation is something that's in the back of their mind. What's in the front of their mind is, if I don't work, I don't get paid, and I can't pay rent. Okay? But so what happens then, if there is a conflict of interest, the employees are not likely to cover up for the corporation because their loyalty is not that strong. If you have a Mexican migrant in the state of California working for a Chinese car dealership, his primary loyalty is to the Mexican people. Secondly, to the United States. And thirdly, to that corporation where he works. You get it? That's the psychology of worldly people. So that's why the Chinese corporation, when they open a car dealership in California, they will get some Cheng or whoever from Hong Kong or Shanghai to be a manager over there. And that guy, even though it's a lot of paperwork, he will make sure he finds Chinese folks from China, or at least from Chinese diaspora in Southeast Asia, to come over there. And they can make use of loopholes in international law to pay them low wages. That gives an extra grip on them. And that's how those Chinese corporations often get away with tax evasion, as well as with sometimes even criminal activities. Why? Because they have their base, which is their staff that supports them, because they're loyal to the mission. And the mission is Sino-centered. Sino refers to China, because Sin comes from Xin, that's the ancestor of the Chinese people, so they're Sino-centered. So why did I use the example of the Chinese people and Chinese business? To point out the following to you: they are practical. They understand human psychology. And their understanding is put into practice. That's why when you hear about Chinese corporations or Chinese businesses, rarely will you find a non-Chinese individual being the face of that organization or even visible in the stuff. You may have a cleaner that comes along that's an Afro-American or that's an Arab or whatever, but it's Chinese folks all over the place. They know human psychology, especially psychology of fallen mankind, and they may put it into practice. And here's another motivation behind it. When bad stuff happens For example, someone's being exploited or some employee got sick because they worked too long, whatever, all the others cover up. So there are no scandals. How often do you hear Chinese corporations involved in scandals? Except from time to time, suspicious of criminal activity. How often do you hear about scandals about them in the newspapers? I thought so. They make sure that their base is loyal to them. And when it comes to worldly people, loyalty depends on the amount of options someone has. The less options someone has, the more loyal they'll become. The more options they have, the less loyal they'll tend to be. And that's one of the reasons, actually it's the primary reason, but there are more reasons, but the primary reason why most countries in the world don't allow you to have more than one nationality. Many of you are American citizens by birth. Okay, so you didn't choose for it, you're just an American citizen. And as an American citizen, officially, you're not allowed to take a second nationality, but it happens. Okay? In some countries, for example, in Latin America, once you're born there, you have the nationality for life. You can't forfeit it. Some countries have that. But okay, let's say now that you are an American citizen and let's say you are a Korean guy, your parents moved to the United States. When you were born, you got the American citizenship, so you are an American by passport, but ethnically you're Korean, okay? Let's say now you also want Korean nationality in order to have advantages in Korea. You go to the Korean embassy, say you want Korean citizenship, but then they tell you, okay, sir, okay, Mr. Kim, you want Korean citizenship, you're from Korean ethnicity, you speak Korean despite being born in the United States, you visit Korea multiple times, okay, but you need to understand, as a Korean male, you have to go into the military for 18 months. And you think, okay, and besides that, you need to give up all other nationalities. And you need to agree to put the interests of the Republic of Korea, to the South Korea, above all other people. And then you ask the Korean ambassador, why can't I have both passports, both an American and a South Korean one? And he says, well, that's just the rule, else you can take advantage of us. But he tells them, I have no criminal records, I'm not going to take advantage of everyone. What's the issue? And I'll explain what the issue is to you. If Kim has an American passport, which gives them an advantage as an American, and he has a Korean passport that gives an advantage as a Korean, let's say now that Korean society finds out that he has a leverage. What's going to happen to Mr. Kim when he walks down the street in South Korea? He's going to get trouble, because here's the thing. All those millions of other Koreans have only one passport. So they have no choice but to get along with all the regulations of the Korean government. That's the yoke all of them live under. If you're a Korean and you have a diplomatic leverage that you can bypass the yoke of the Korean government that all the rest of the Korean population lives under, others going to feel cheated, thinking, why is this that this Kim over there has this advantage I don't have? And here's the thing, if you do that, walking around, sooner or later, the people are going to get upset with you. Because you have a leverage, you can escape some of the yokes they have to deal with. And then you become a target of the public. And then the government has to deal with protecting you against the rage of the public. And then they'll be at war with their own citizens. Because commoners cannot handle that you have a leverage they can't control. Because if you have more than one nationality, sooner or later it's going to come out. You are a human being. And as a human being, when you have a leverage, you will show it. I don't care how good of an actor you are. All human beings eventually give themselves away. If someone has a leverage, for example, if someone has tons of money on their bank account that they inherited from a father that passed away, for example, and they have a 9 to 5, The moment they have all that money on their bank account, they know I can quit my job anytime. So next days at work, he'll be quite relaxed. And everyone around him going to think, why is this guy so relaxed? He never told anyone he has that money on his bank account. And he pretended to be stressed out, but he pretends very poorly. So everyone knows this guy is not afraid of losing his job. Everyone gets it. So then they think, why is he not afraid of losing his job? And then people are going to stalk him to find out what's going on. And the moment they find out there's a lot of cash, they try to take him out. Because they're going to be upset that they have no financial options, but now he has all the options that he can have. So your behavior sooner or later will give you away. That's human. Nobody can deceive convincingly for a long period of time. No human being can do that. Some scam artists use paranormal aid to be able to con people for years, but eventually you give yourself away. Okay, so that's why most countries won't allow you to have dual citizenship, because they know what for consequence it will have on you. Even if you are a decent, good individual, you will face trouble because you have a diplomatic leverage others don't have. You are going to get in trouble. And that's why if they give you a second citizenship, they also need to stand behind it by protecting you, and they know that they won't be able to protect you. Because most commoners decide that they're going to harm you, they're going to harm you sooner or later. And if they can't harm you, they'll turn on their own. So no country wants to have to go at war with their own people because there's one foreigner that got extra citizenship. No country wants to do that. Now, some countries will allow, for example, if you are from Latin America, you can get a Spanish passport as second very quickly due to the colonial past. So, and sometimes the cultures are so similar and there's so much exchange between the countries that they don't mind. But in general, countries don't want it. Okay, that's the reason why, and they're quite smart in doing it. And here's another thing. Let's say someone is a dangerous individual with bad intentions. Then they can have an American passport and they can have, let's say, a French passport, but just an EU passport. So with the French passport, they can go throughout the European Union, including those countries associated with the European Union, like Turkey, Norway, Switzerland, and all of that. So they have a big leverage in business in Europe. So such an individual can register a business in Europe because with a European passport, a passport of the EU, you can start a business in any other EU country. So he can now start a business in Finland with his French passport and open an office of it in the United States. He never visited Finland, but again, due to EU law, he can open a registered business in Finland, open an office in the United States, and use EU law for regulating the taxes. And he now can exploit everyone that works for him who's in contact with him in the United States. And if he's able to do this, the government doesn't care, but your business partner is going to think, oh, this guy is trying to take advantage of us. Okay, now we're going to send him after him, whatever. Because all those other businessmen only have one passport and they need to bend over to the IRS. You can bypass the IRS because you have both the European Union as the United States of America as your leverage. So, having leverage in this world implies that people will seek to take the leverage away from you. That's how simple it is. Those that still don't understand this, I know what they've been doing for their whole lives. Especially if you're older than 25, you should know by now. Having a leverage in this world implies people seek to take that leverage away from you. And if they can't take the leverage away from you, they'll seek out to exterminate you directly. And if they can't exterminate you, they'll escalate to anyone around them. They'll just lose their minds. That's why society doesn't want anyone to have a leverage they cannot shut down. That's what integration is all about. That's why when you have people from Iraq coming to the Netherlands, you have those Dutch political parties that require them to integrate in the Netherlands. That means assimilate to the Dutch culture. Because once they do that, they have no leverage anymore from Iraq. And then the Dutch society, Dutch commoners will not feel, they won't feel wrong because they don't have an extra leverage like the Iraqi guy does. So before I continue, do you understand what I've explained till now? Let me know in the live chat. So, now, what this comes down to is that worldly organizations, they use practical knowledge in how they deal with their customers as well as their citizens. Chinese corporations, they know how to do business. That's why even when they sell crap convincingly. Have you ever asked yourself why the world keeps putting their factories in China, or why they keep involving themselves with China? China produces a lot, it has a lot of mass production, that's true. But a lot of things China produces is not of good quality. Listen, if you are from Mexico and there are Mexican factories over there that can produce something far better than some factory in Wuhan, why is it that many Mexicans prefer to let it be produced in China? They need to pay import tariffs and additional taxes to sell the product in Mexico. So why would you relocate your production to China where it's more expensive? Because once the products are finished, you need to pay tariffs on it anyway. So when you look at it, or from an economic and financial perspective, it's quite dumb to really relocate your production to China. But why are they doing it? It's as follows. The Chinese have a reputation of dominance in Asia. And this reputation is spread worldwide by them only putting Chinese people in their stuff for the most part. And because of that, they give a strong impression. And this strong impression impresses worldly people. So when people think about China, they think about a dominant power, even though China is not really a dominant power anymore, but that's how people perceive them. And because of this perception, they tend to treat Chinese businesses with a type of honor. Okay? So if you are from Mexico and you want your products to be produced, Mexico has a bad reputation in the world. Though to drug cartels, though to the independence from Spain and all of that, they have a very bad reputation, even amongst Mexicans that live in Mexico. So if you produce your product in Mexico to sell it in Mexican society, Mexicans who also think a bit low of the country in general over there will think, you know what, it's a Mexican product, I don't want to take it. Probably it's produced by some drug cartel that's enslaving people, I don't want this. But if you let your product be produced in China and you see made in China, China is associated with being this dominant power. They think, China. They tend to purchase it. That's the psychology of worldly people. So then you have Mexican corporations that make money by producing their stuff in China, even though whatever is produced in China is of lower quality. Because people value China's image, they will value that Mexican product produced in China. And because there's more quantity, people are more willing to pay for it. They hide the fact how much quantity there is. And because people value the dominant image or dominant reputation of China, they don't push the product. And now they make more profit. If they were to produce it in Mexico, they could have produced the same amount, but then you wouldn't be able to sell anything. Now, because it comes from China, they sell a lot. And that's why worldwide many corporations put their factories and their production in China. And it has to do with the image that China portrays. And that image is the only thing China has. Nothing else. The military is quite small. The population is quite divided. They have a demographic problem over there. In some areas, you have too many men than women. So, even though China is a country, it's actually a region that functions as a country. To the outside, it's a country, but internally, no, it's like a region with various Chinese groups, including Tibet and a Muslim population in the West also. You have a Mongolian minority, also, and a Korean minority, also, and a Manchu minority. So it's a region that functions as a country. So they're not really this dominant power, but that's the image they have, and they take advantage of this image, and that's why the world keeps being involved with China. They can get out of China anytime, but it's due to the image it has in the world that it benefits them. And the Chinese diaspora know very well that it's this image that gives them a leverage worldwide. They know it. They know that the moment this image is ruined, many corporations realize, okay, there's no benefit for us to relocate in China, we'll move out. And then the economic relevancy of China, the Chinese diaspora will go down, and once that goes down, the Chinese diaspora will become poorer, and they'll likely become the target of racial violence wherever they are outside of China. So the Chinese diaspora worldwide, collectively, they understand our well-being as well as our well-functioning as a people overseas depends on people having this respect towards China. That's why we need to be on code to keep this impression that the world has going. That's why the Chinese diaspora often puts a lot of pressure on the children to do to study and get the best grades. The perception of China has more impact than China itself. Because China itself is a region with various ethnic groups who often don't even get along. And everyone lives under this harsh socialistic regime. And that brings forth a lot of pollution also. And they back up a lot of Chinese people in a lot of cities. So when you look at it, China itself as a region doesn't have that much impact. It's the reputation or the image of China that does it. And that's why China does not allow free internet in the region. Because from time to time, commoners in China post things on the internet of what happens in China. For example, you have homeless people that are run over with cars and nobody cares, or you have other stuff that happens, certain type of animals that they eat, like cats, they steam cats or they steam dogs and all of that, or they eat bat soup, which bats carry a lot of diseases in their wings. So if you eat bat soup with the head of the bat in the soup, not only does it look very gross, it's also very unhealthy, but they do that in China. When all those things come out in mainstream media and on social media about China, the reputation of China goes down. And once the reputation goes down, the value they have for China disappears, and the world's economy needs to be reconstructed, because now corporations don't benefit anymore from people valuing their product because it's produced in China. So that's why there's a lot of censorship in China. Do you follow me now, what I've explained here? Let me know in the live chat. I'll wait. Yes. And that's the thing that the United States did not have. Being on code. The United States is also a region, just like China is a region, but the United States doesn't have let's say, a common narrative that puts awe in the rest of the world. The United States has a legacy of aggression that people tolerate. So that's the legacy of the United States. So it's not really an honorable image that the United States has, it's more an image of aggression, just like the British had during the British Empire. So that's what the United States had. And the darkness of the United States, namely this racism against the black Americans and minorities, has always circulated. There was a brief time in the 1970s, still around the mid-1990s, during the time that Lizen Parish Cruz, also known as Tupac Shakur, was shot. That was a short period in which the reputation of the United States was kind of honorable, because the Vietnam War ruined it, okay? And they benefited from it. But here's the thing. because black folks kept on speaking out about what they're going through over there, and it kept spreading worldwide, the image of the United States was tainted. So now in the media, they had to blame black folks for what they were going through systematically. But it never worked. But it's only because the United States was known for its aggression militarily that people bypassed this. But now that Southeast Asia has become an integrated region, now that Africa has its African Union, now that all of those regional developments have grown in the world, there is less space for a region to bully other regions or other tiny countries, because in the 1960s, you had no regional integration in Southeast Asia. So the United States as a region could go there and smack Vietnam around, or Cambodia, Thailand, whatever. Now they can't do that easily anymore. So now the United States needs an honorable image worldwide for people to value the United States. And here's the thing, they don't have that in comparison to China. And what happened is that a lot of Americans realized that they don't have this honorable image around the world. They thought they have an honorable image, but reality has shown they didn't have it. And when it appeared like it was there, their own actions ruined it. So that's why Donald Trump, in 2015, when he was campaigning, talked about making America great again. Talk about giving America a respectable image in the world. But here's the thing. Donald Trump was not honorable himself. Look at his lifestyle. Look at his past. And apart from him, to have an honorable image, there must be something honorable about your country or your region to begin with. And that means owning up to all your errors. Or you need to be narcissistic as China, that you hide all your errors and pretend it doesn't exist, because that's what China does. They hide all their crap by censorship, and nobody notices it. That's why people think they're so honorable. The United States never managed to censor its crap, especially the violence against black people. They never managed to censor it. It always came out. And they never owned up to it. Never, as a collective. And under Donald Trump, they thought they could get away with it again. Didn't work. So that's the situation of the United States. And here's the thing. Though this COVID situation, how Trump mismanaged it, and many Americans are dying because of that flu thing, I'm telling you, there's not going to be any honorable image anymore for the United States, which he never had to begin with. So that is a disadvantage of the United States, that is sought to compensate with their military presence all over the world. So believers, do you understand now how important a reputation is in daily life? Let me know in the live chat. Good. Everyone else understands this also? Hold on. Good. So now, realize the following, believer. Reputation does not mean everyone endorses you. Everyone likes you. Everyone hugs you. That does not what reputation means. Reputation is just the perception they have of you. And if the perception is an honorable perception, then that is what matters. Emotionally, they will cling on to that honorable impression they have. If the impression or the reputation is bad, so they have a dishonorable perception, then that's how are they going to treat you. Now, in the world, corporations and governments seek to get a good reputation by giving in to what the masses want. For example, wearing a suit and a tie. I'm going to tell you again where the suit and the tie comes from. During the Spanish Empire, because Spain did as a country did not exist. You had like 14 kingdoms in the Iberian Peninsula, and you had Sicily, Naples, and Sardinia were 3 Italian kingdoms, were also part of it, and you had the kingdoms in North and South America and the Philippines. That was Spain. Okay. Now in the Spanish Empire, you had the Italian part of the empire where they spoke Spanish and Italian. That's why on Sicily you have many people with Spanish last names. What happened there is that you had families who were hired by the Roman Catholic Church to do the dirty work of being bailiffs, of extorting people or kidnapping people, whatever. Those families received permission by the Catholic Church to do such business and to make profit as long as they handed the profit over to the local priests and local bishops. That is where the mafia comes from. Italian families under the Spanish Empire that assisted the Roman Catholic Church. And these families spread all over Spanish America, so in Americas. So eventually, those Roman Catholic crime syndicates, that's how I'm going to call them, they needed to have a dress code that they could recognize one another. Okay, remember you had no telephones at the time. You had no instant communication via cameras like we have now. You had horses. You had bicycles was a new thing since 1816, and you had sail ships, and you had steamers that emerged in the late 18th century. So communication was getting quicker in the 19th century, but it was still distant. So at the end of the 18th century, early 19th century, the French mafia, if you can call it that way, those French families that assisted the Roman Catholic Church, they came up with a dress code, namely a ritual slipknot. A slipknot is something you hang yourself on, or you hang someone. A ritual slipknot made from textile that you put around your neck. And that ritual slipknot was a symbol that you are stuck. If you open your mouth, we come and we torture you and kill you. That's a symbol of the slip of the tie. It's a symbolic bondage to the criminal syndicate. Okay? So, if you were in Venezuela, for example, in 1820, it was about to become independent from Spain, but if you were in 1820 in Venezuela and you would encounter someone else with that slipknot, then you knew they're part of a mafia. Okay? And they were often also Freemasons, but not always, because the mafia and Freemasons are two different groups, but sometimes they were both. So those mafia families recognized their members by the textile slipknot. And eventually you realize, okay, to wear this slipknot like this is quite odd, so we need to have a whole coat. So in France, they decide this coat and this long trousers to carry with a slipknot. And that's where I get the suit and tie from. So during the Napoleon era, this dress code became very popular amongst the criminals who looked up to those mafia families, which originated in Sicily. So eventually, criminals all over the earth copied this, and they began to wear this suit and tie. And because those criminals were quite ruthless, they had to cover this up with some family values. So the criminals that worked for the mafia families, they had family values they promoted. And it's those family values that trick the masses into accepting their influence. Okay? They also developed this family structure in the criminal organizations. And all the men there wore a suit and tie. And a suit and tie became associated with strong family values, even though it's a symbol of paranormal bondage. And that's how, around at the end of the 19th century, the suit and tie became the norm in the world when you wanted to impress people. till this day, you wear a suit and a tie, people treat you far differently when you wear jeans. And most people today don't even know where a suit and tie comes from. They don't know the history I'm telling you now. Of those mafia families and how France, the Napoleon era, Spanish America, the Spanish Empire, all of that. They don't know any of that. And here's the thing, the police as a national institution also emerged in the Spanish Empire and it was solidified in 1819. That it was enforced in both the Spanish territories in the Americas, the Philippines, as well as Spain. And later it was copied by the rest of the world. Before that, you only had local patrols that solved crime. Most people don't even know this. So the emergence of the police as an institution, as well as the emergence of the suit and tie, are all connected to the Spanish Empire, as well as the Roman Catholic Church. Most people don't know any of that. They just know that when you wear a suit and a tie, you're treated far better. And that's why those pagan churches use suits and ties to impress people. So that's how organizations and governments in the world seek to get a good reputation with world links, is by impressing them. That's the only thing the world has. But the issue of the world is they're not consistent. Those crime syndicates or mafia families, as well as the criminals, they promote strong family values, but at the same time, they kill men who are criminals, causing harm to families. So they're not consistent. So in the long term, it's not going to work. We as believers, we build a positive reputation by being powerful and consistent. That's how we do it. The world gets a good reputation by impressing people, by giving in to people's expectations. And by doing that, they even shape the expectation of the masses. We build a good reputation by being powerful and consistent. So it doesn't work if you have the black community in the United States, and let's say you have 50 churches in one city. You have 50 churches in one city. 40 of them are black churches, so you have 40 black churches in a city. Yet there's a lot of crime going on, and there's a lot of police brutality, killing unarmed black men and women. There's even police harassing black women. How can you have police harassing black women and it becomes a norm in a city where there are 40 black churches where a lot of black women go to and sing praise and hallelujah every Sunday? Something doesn't add up here. So there's no power because evil's not shut down, and because of that they're not consistent, because they talk about glorifying the Heavenly Father, but they themselves forfeit the Heavenly Father by enabling the violence against blacks. So as believers, wherever we are, from which background ever, we need to be powerful and consistent. That's how we build a positive reputation. And again, a positive reputation does not mean that everyone's going to embrace you and jump on you to hug you. That's an obsession, really. A positive reputation simply means that you make an honorable impression on people, and because this honorable impression, they can't get around you. Now again, the world gets a positive reputation by giving in to people's expectations, by avoiding cuss words, by wearing suits and ties, or using signs and symbols. That's how they do it. Political correctness is one way to do it. We as believers always seek to establish a good reputation, but based on power and consistency. So we must operate in the power to enforce a good reputation on our behalf. If we don't operate in power, we won't have a good reputation, because if we join the world and to give in to people's expectations, we'll become just as toxic as the world. And then people are going to ask, why you guys call yourself believers, but you guys do whatever the world does? So for us as believers to have a good reputation or a positive reputation, we need to operate in power and consistency. Do you understand this? Let me know in the live chat. I'll wait. So that's why we as believers, just like our brothers and sisters that lived in the first century, first, second, and third century, before the Roman Catholic Church came into existence, that's why we have to be like them. We have to emerge, we have to design, enforce, create our own internal economies with one another as believers, and we expand it by sucking up the economies of the world into our Christ-centered economies, and that's how we become economically relevant. And because we operate in that power, we have an impact in people wherever we are. Right now, when you hear the word Christian or the name Christian, people think, oh, it's just that churchgoer that's a hypocrite, or just churchgoer that wants to hide their defects while looking down on others. Why? Because you have the Roman Catholic Church, which pretends to be Christian, even though they just follow the ancient teachings of Rome. And because they pretend to be Christian, whenever they do evil, people associate it with the name of Christ. And that's why we as believers have such a bad reputation. That's what the enemy is doing via those pagan churches. Now we can overrule this by operating in real power and consistency. And that's what we ought to do. I'm not saying that when we have a good reputation, everyone's going to be at ease with us. No. But when we have a good reputation, that alone will demotivate people from attacking and seeking to sabotage us. And they will seek to sabotage and attack us anyway, but when we have a good reputation, it hinders them in doing it. Christ said, be wise as serpents, yet innocent as doves. That's why I'm telling you, this thing about reputation is quite important, and it's time for us to address it. That's why I'm addressing it. What they tell you in the world, what other people think about you is none of your business, that's not true. It is your business how other people think about you. Not because you can change how they think about you, but because how they think about you will affect you. So even though you can't change how they think about you, you can make it hard for them to think bad about you. That is what you can do. You can't change how they think about you, but you can make it hard on them to think bad about you. And once you make it hard for them to think bad about you, that's your leverage for you to keep pushing on. The moment it's very easy for worldlings to think bad about you, they'll become more comfortable dumping and organizing against you. And once they're organized against you, man, you're finished. Okay, because you're not going to stop, because once they've organized against you, they've made so much effort that they don't want to give up. They'll fight to the last breath just to keep you down. Now, some of those reprobate groups will be there anyway, but we should not make it easy on them to revolt against us. Okay? Does this mean that we have to watch out what other people want, to give into what they want, or else they're going to think bad about us? No. That's what pagan church is teaching. That's fear. What we do is we are powerful. We make sure that we decree, declare, pray, and fast, that we have an impact on the environment around us, so that our impact shuts down violence. And once our impact is visible and people can't deny it, they're going to ask us where this power comes from, and we can clearly point out to them where the power comes from. And then, once that has happened, we can openly disregard their toxic, stupid expectations. Because then we have a positive reputation. So if they want to oppose us or resist us, they need to go against that positive reputation. And that's going to be quite difficult. Okay? So that's why we need to operate in power and consistency all the time. That is how we shut down the violence and we contain the reprobate, so they don't go around the earth spreading their filth all over everyone. So you don't gain a positive reputation by avoiding people that are targeted. You know why white supremacy keeps on continuing? You know why racism against blacks and violence against blacks keeps continuing? Because a lot of people want to have a good reputation. And because worldwide it's a norm to dump on black people, they avoid black people in hope that they're not a target. So That's why it continues. There's a lot of people out of fright of becoming a target, they get along with the white supremacy. That's what they do. Even a lot of blacks do it. Once they are promoted at the job somewhere, they can't avoid other black people being talked down on black people because they know black folks are the assigned victims of society. So if you are associated with assigned victims, people will feel comfortable victimizing you too. They think if we join the victimization and excuse ourselves, we will get a good reputation. For the world at least. And on the short term, it does, but you now are an enabler and a participant of the evil. So what do? We don't gain a good reputation by just giving in to whatever the world wants and by validating their negativity. No, we gain a positive reputation by operating in power and consistency. That is what we do. Okay? We act as wise, not as fools. For you to think whatever people think about me, it's not my business, that's operating as a fool. Okay? Because once the public is triggered against you, eventually, once they're so triggered, they want to organize themselves against you, want to take action. Once they've taken action, they've invested. And once they've invested against you, they will never give it up. And till the day you die, they will be there just to shut you down, and their children will take over when they pass away. So then your children have issues also. So consider what others think about you, just to check whether you have a positive reputation, and if not, enforce positive reputation by operating in power and consistency. That's how believers have to do it. We can't do it the way the world does, because the way the world does, you're in bondage and there are side effects. If you do it the world's way, then you are chained to the expectation of the masses, and if one day you don't give in to the expectation, they turn on you. So you're operating under a threat of harm in the world if you want a good reputation. You want a good reputation on the world's terms, you have to be under the threat of harm of society. So you have to be under the blackmail. You want a good reputation God's way, you have to operate in power and consistency, and the power shuts down the violence around you, and the consistency shuts people up. That is how we do it as believers. So that's it for now. I don't have to motivate you any further. Keep on agreeing with Christ. Be at peace.